Hey Juice fam, welcome back to K-pop&juice, the home of fresh, hot, juicy, and totally unfiltered K-entertainment tea. If you love real talk, deep dives, and the kind of stories that make you pause mid-scroll and say, wait, what is really going on here? Then you're absolutely in the right place. Today's story isn't just gossip, it's a full-blown narrative shift. Because 1 month ago, the internet was on fire with accusations, outrage, and wild speculation. But now, the tone has changed. The conversation has evolved. And the truth, well, the truth might be a lot more complicated than anyone first thought. So grab your snacks, settle in, and let's unpack what's really happening after 1 month of the tax controversy surrounding Cha Eun-woo, and why the public mood is moving from outrage to analysis. When the story first broke, it hit like a thunderclap. Headlines spread at lightning speed, social media exploded, and comment sections turned into battlegrounds overnight. The phrase tax controversy alone is enough to make any celebrity trend for all the wrong reasons. But when the name attached is someone known for a squeaky clean image, the shock multiplies. Fans were confused, critics were loud, and casual observers suddenly had opinions. It felt less like news and more like a scandal avalanche, the kind where facts get buried under emotion before anyone has time to breathe. In those first 48 hours, the narrative was simple and brutal. Accusation equals guilt. Online discourse rarely waits for nuance, and this case was no exception. Screenshots circulated without context, translations were debated, and half-understood legal terms were thrown around like confetti. Everyone seemed certain they knew exactly what had happened, even though official details were scarce. It became a textbook example of how modern scandals unfold: fast, loud, and often incomplete. What made the situation even more explosive was the contrast between the allegations and the star's public persona. For years, he had been marketed and perceived as disciplined, polite, almost impossibly wholesome. Not just talented, but safe. The kind of celebrity brands trust and parents approve of. So when controversy touched that image, it felt like a betrayal to some and a mystery to others. How could someone so carefully managed be caught in something so messy? But here's where things started to get interesting. As days passed, more information began trickling out. Not dramatic revelations, not shocking confessions, just boring technical details. The kind that doesn't trend but matters. Reports suggested the issue wasn't about deliberate wrongdoing in the criminal sense, but about complex tax interpretations, accounting procedures, and disputes over how certain income streams should be categorized. Suddenly, the story wasn't scandal. It was paperwork. And paperwork, let's be honest, doesn't make for viral outrage. It requires patience. It requires context. It requires understanding systems most people never think about until something goes wrong. That's when the tone slowly began to shift. Commentators who initially joined the outrage started asking questions instead of making declarations. Legal analysts weighed in. Industry insiders spoke cautiously about how complicated celebrity finances can be, especially for idols and actors juggling endorsements, overseas income, agency structures, and personal corporations. Another crucial factor was the silence. Not defensive silence, but measured silence. Instead of reacting emotionally, official statements came in controlled, careful language. No dramatic press conferences, no late-night apology videos, just clarifications, documents, and a consistent message that the matter was being reviewed according to legal procedures. In the chaotic world of scandal management, that restraint stood out. Fans, meanwhile, began doing what fans do best: digging, not in a malicious way, but in a protective one. They compiled timelines, compared reports, translated legal commentary, and pushed back against misinformation. Online spaces that were initially flooded with criticism started hosting more balanced discussions. It wasn't blind defense, it was skepticism toward the initial narrative. Media coverage evolved too. Early headlines were sensational, using words like shock, controversy, and uproar. A month later, those same outlets began publishing explainer pieces. Instead of asking, what did he do? They were asking, how do celebrity tax disputes work? That shift alone speaks volumes. Outrage sells immediately, analysis sells slowly, but lasts longer. There's also a cultural dimension to consider. In South Korea, tax issues involving celebrities have a complicated history. Some cases involved clear evasion and severe penalties. Others turned out to be administrative disputes resolved without criminal findings. Because of that precedent, the public has learned, sometimes the hard way, that not every tax controversy is the same. Over time, people become more cautious about rushing to judgment. Another subtle but powerful element is reputation inertia. A public image built over years doesn't disappear overnight unless evidence is overwhelming. For many observers, the absence of dramatic new revelations created doubt about the initial assumptions. If something truly catastrophic had occurred, wouldn't there be more developments by now? That question alone softened opinions. Then came the analysts, financial experts, legal commentators, and industry watchers who approached the story like a case study rather than a scandal. They explained how entertainers often operate through agencies that handle accounting, how international earnings complicate tax filings, and how disputes can arise even when all parties believe they're following the rules. Suddenly, the story sounded less like wrongdoing and more like a bureaucratic maze. Social media sentiment tracking even showed a measurable shift. Early posts were dominated by anger and disappointment. Weeks later, curiosity and cautious neutrality took over. People weren't necessarily defending him. They were waiting for official conclusions, waiting for facts, waiting for clarity. In a world addicted to instant opinions, waiting itself is a sign of changed perception. Of course, not everyone softened. Some critics maintain that public figures should be held to higher standards regardless of intent. Others argued that wealth and influence often lead to more lenient interpretations of mistakes. These perspectives didn't disappear, they just became part of a broader conversation rather than the entire conversation. What's fascinating is how this situation highlights the life cycle of modern celebrity controversies. Phase 1, shock and speculation. Phase 2, polarization. Phase 3, information saturation. Phase 4, fatigue. And finally, Phase 5, reflection. We are clearly in that last stage now, the point where people step back and reassess what they thought they knew. There's also an emotional component. Fans who felt hurt initially may have needed time to process before engaging with nuance. Supporters who rushed to defend may have needed evidence to feel secure. Neutral observers may have simply waited for the noise to die down. A month is long enough for emotions to cool, but short enough for the story to remain relevant. Interestingly, brand partnerships and industry reactions have been closely watched. In severe scandals, companies often distance themselves immediately. In this case, responses were cautious rather than panicked. Some activities continued quietly, suggesting that insiders did not view the situation as catastrophic. That subtle vote of confidence influenced public perception more than any statement could. Another layer is the psychology of expectations. When someone is perceived as flawless, even minor issues can seem major. Conversely, when time passes without confirmation of major wrongdoing, the pendulum can swing the other way, making the issue appear smaller than initially believed. The truth usually sits somewhere in between. Online discourse has also matured in unexpected ways. Discussions now include broader topics: financial literacy, celebrity labor structures, the pressures of maintaining public image, and the dangers of instant judgment. In other words, the controversy has evolved into a conversation about systems, not just one individual. Some fans even argue that this period revealed more about media behavior than about the celebrity himself. The speed at which narratives form and reform says a lot about how information ecosystems function today. Outrage is easy to manufacture.